The wind of party defection continues to blow in Nigeria. The latest in the motion is the governor of Zamfara State, whose alleged defection, I should say, has made the National Working Committee, NWC, of the People's Democratic Party to summon an emergency meeting today to discuss the planned defection of the Zamfara State Governor, Honorable Matawalle, to the All Progressive Congress, APC, tomorrow. In an announcement yesterday by the Commissioner for Information, Mr. Ibrahim Dosara, the state government invited the governor's supporters to witness the defection. The statement further said that the Kano State Governor, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, and other APC stalwarts will receive the Zamfara State Governor into the APC. The Director General of Media in the state, Mr. Idris Yusuf, had earlier yesterday told our sister outfit this day that the governor will address journalists on the issue tomorrow. Meanwhile, the PDP said yesterday that Matawalle had not informed it that he was defecting to the APC. Gale of defections everywhere, Tundu.
Yes, and we're going to see more, I'm sure, between now and 2023. So it appears that APC has triumphed, after all, in Zamfara State, because you'll recall the Supreme Court, rather scandalously in some minds, awarded APC's electoral victories to the second-place party, which happened to be PDP, apart from 2 seats in their House of Assembly. Scandalous because PDP was not a party to the suit. A relief was granted that was not sought. But I have to get into all of this as a reminder, because when we look at the shenanigans in Anambra State, those lessons have not been learned. The court will come in and, rain on your parade if you do not get your party primaries right. All the parties in Anambra need to have this reminder. Anyway, back to Zamfara and Mr. Matawalle. Well, it appears that he is defecting, even though he has not served official notice to his party, the PDP, and it appears that they are reacting because they've convened this emergency meeting. And he has also had this mass sacking, I guess, to avoid the situation that happened, a rather awkward situation in Ebonyi and Cross River State, where the governor defected and the aides refused to do so.
Dr. Abati?
My concern is this. Governor Matawalle, who got to that position because the APC in the 2019 elections could not get his primaries right, swore on more than one occasion that he would never leave the People's Democratic Party.
That he did.
In 1 or 2 videos, he even said that God should deal with him if he ever left the People's Democratic Party. Now, Governor Bello Matawalle is a Muslim. Muslims don't swear, with the name of God, loosely or lightly. So my concern is that, yes, the rumor had been there that the governor of Zamfara would sooner or later join the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress. The question to ask, the fundamental question is, was he pushed? Was he threatened? Was he intimidated? Are we seeing a new kind of political gimmickry, whereby governors who belong to other political parties are intimidated and pushed or blackmailed to join the ruling party ahead of the 2023 elections? I raised that proposal. I don't have a direct answer to it. Because you recall that in May 2021, Governor Ben Ayade of Cross River State also cross-carpeted, defected from the opposition PDP to the ruling APC. And he promised that a lot of followers would join him in the ruling party. In November 2020, it was David Umahi, another governor of Enugu State, right? Who moved from
Ebonyi State.
Ebonyi State. Okay, David Umahi of Ebonyi State. That was why I hesitated. Who moved from the PDP again to the ruling party? How many more governors would defect before the 2023 election? The big fear is about the looming, the suspicious, the speculated emergence of a one-party state in Nigeria. Because the more members of the ruling party that shift sideways, the more you will have the certainty of an APC victory in the 2023 general elections. And the other question to ask is that, is this a representation of the wish of the people? Some people have said, yes, within the province of the law, if you get elected on the platform of a particular political party, you can't just midway shift from one part to the other. But the convention the tradition that we have seen long before now, even before the 2015 general elections, even before the 2007 general elections, or even 2011, is that politicians, either at the level of being the governor or being legislatures, at all levels, have always moved sideways. And the people will complain, the political party will complain, as the People's Democratic Party is complaining now, that look, we have not been informed. Where if the PDP is expecting that they will be officially informed by Governor Matawalle of Zamfara, that may possibly be a wishful thinking. Because all the other ones who moved to the other party, to the ruling party before now, they didn't deem it necessary to inform the party that they originally belonged to. So this is the pattern we have seen. But what are the clear theoretical indications? One of which is that political commitment in Nigeria is not based on ideology. So politicians can move from just one side to the other. You may cite recent examples in the United Kingdom and say we've seen in the United Kingdom 1 or 2 cases where persons moved from one party to the other. But it's not as if it's the norm. It's not as if it's the pattern in those other jurisdictions. Here in Nigeria, politics is ego-driven, politics is personality-driven, politics is interest-driven. So if a particular politician on one particular side thinks, oh, he or she is at risk, the convenient thing to do is to move to the other side without regard for the nature of the votes that brought that person into power. I think that, the longer indication of it, the longer end of the stick, is that in Nigeria, we still have to worry a lot more about, one, internal democracy within our political parties. The chairman of INEC, the current chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, he's been talking about it all the time, internal democracy within the political parties. So that political parties should move from being special purpose vehicles to feed the ambition of individuals in as convenient a manner as possible to become ideological units for gaining power and for moving Nigeria forward. At the moment, these political parties and the persons that dominate them, are just interested in moving their own interests forward. And that is why I've always also argued, in case some people will ask me, oh, why are you saying that? That, look, the best and the brightest should go into politics in Nigeria. The flotsam and the jetsam, the Division 3, are the persons who, as a result of godfatherism or opportunism or hypocrisy or access to certain influential centers, have been dominating Nigerian politics. So those of us who think we have the ideas, who analyze everything almost up to the point of paralysis, we should get involved. We should seize the initiative. The other time it was Omoyele Sowore who was saying, take back our country, right? His methods, were unique, but there is a sense in which the intellectual class, the intelligentsia in Nigeria can take back this country from this opportunistic, hypocritical class that is only interested in personal, futuristic ambitions rather than the future of Nigeria. Let us hope, let us wait till tomorrow. In politics, anything can happen in 24 hours. Governor Matawalle may change his mind. He may just wake up and say he's not going anywhere again. Politicians, Nigerian professional politicians, are capable of anything. But we wait what will happen. We await what will happen tomorrow.
All right, yeah. Maybe if he renounces that swearing episode too, maybe that might be the case. But thank you so much, Dr. Batiantu. And that's all on news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have the trio of Rotus, Michael, and Adesoa to give us updates on Africa, global business, and COVID-19. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now for a business update, we're joined by Michael Wilson from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Very, very quiet start to the week, really. Financial markets in Asia are off to a subdued start today. We should remember it's 100 years of the Communist Party this week, so China will be celebrating that. The weather slightly delayed market opening in Hong Kong. COVID-19 concerns weighing on everybody. So a very light data week, gradually increasing towards the end when we get the non-farm payrolls on Friday. So that's the big one. So therefore, for Asian markets, weekend news relatively sedate. China industrial industrial profits up 83%, not quite the 106% of the month before. But price increases and ongoing chip shortage have actually affected a lot of things. So Wall Street finishing on a relatively positive note, but Asian equity markets mostly slightly negative starting the week. Again, waiting to see what happens in the week ahead. Speaking with the big for China, the week will be dominated by China's official manufacturing and services PMIs. That's released on Wednesday. The Kaixin manufacturing PMI on Thursday. I think we'll be watching out for, there'll be a big increase in the economy there naturally, but the chip shortages will make a difference to it. Wall Street finished on a positive note. Equity markets boosted by President Biden's retreat on linking the bipartisan infrastructure package to his social spending program. So that's quite a move. Now let's talk about travel and Europe. And Angela Merkel, the German president, wants a UK travel ban. She wants Britain designated as a country of concern after this Delta variant is starting to increase. Now, again, the big tourist destinations of Greece, Cyprus, Malta and Portugal will object to this naturally when they meet. France is ambivalent. The UK can go to France, but you've got to be vaccinated to get there. Our Prime Minister Boris Johnson will meet Angela Merkel on Friday to see if they can come to some sort of agreement about it. Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey, of course, of Twitter, Elon Musk of Tesla and so on, they're meeting. They're going to talk publicly. They're going to discuss Bitcoin. The event's called the B Word, and it will take place on July the 21st. Comments from Musk, as you know, have taken Bitcoin investors into a very, very sort of wild ride. And it comes as banks and commercial centrals start to take crypto seriously, but they're also warning about them. And on that, the UK has banned Binance. Now, it's the world's biggest cryptocurrency exchange. It's been banned by the UK's financial regulator. They're saying that the firm cannot take part in any regulated activity within the UK. That's formal financial activity. What that actually means is, and it comes, of course, as there has been a bit of a pushback as far as cryptos are concerned around the world from international finance administrators. It's based in the Cayman Islands. Binance Markets Limited. It has an affiliate in London, and it's got multiple entities around the world. But for the moment, no formal authority-backed trading from that particular platform in the UK. Speaking of the UK, we've talked a lot about this. The tax authorities are going to launch a probe into the COVID relief fund. In other words, the money that the government actually threw at people in terms of furlough, self-employed programs, Eat Out to help out, and all those kind of schemes. There are 13,000 investigations so far. HMRC has received, or rather the tax authorities have received 30,000 complaints from people. It's expected that will rise. As far as politics here, that Matt Hancock resignation, which you will have heard about, relatively sanguine, quite honestly. Ex-Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sajid Javid, becomes the new health secretary. What will he do to the National Health Service itself? Never mind speeding up the pandemic and so on. I think we'll be slightly more hawkish towards the health advice that we've had so far. As far as commodities are concerned, oil grinding very high. I'll come on to that in a second. Gold range bound. Oil's grinding higher, not just because of an OPEC Plus meeting, which will be important and so on, but also its increases due to America grinding back to oil production becoming far too expensive to rival to it right now. And then the big one, of course, as we look towards these, we can get PMIs throughout the world during the week, but the big one, US farm payrolls, non-farm payrolls finished the week. I don't think we're going to get a million. I think that figure was slightly wishful thinking, quite honestly, but 600,000 jobs added won't be too bad. And if that follows actual form, then that will complete the week in a relatively civilized fashion. Back to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Michael. I mean, what do you say about word around town that Sajid Javid is in there, was brought back by Boris Johnson to clip the wings of Rishi Sunak? I mean, there's that word in town. So the grand plan is Rishi, right? Isn't it?
Well, you may have heard that. I haven't heard that. I mean, my take on it is this: that when he stepped down as Chancellor, Boris Johnson sort of stuck by him and said, "You will be coming back at some kind of stage." I think it's entirely appropriate. Like Never mind what's happened with Matt Hancock. That's a different political story altogether. But I think him coming back actually, no, I don't think it does too much about the Chancellor. I'd be much more interested to find out what he's going to do about what his attitude towards public spending, because the majority of public spending has been on the health service, which is the biggest employer in the country. Takes last count, I think it's about 8% of GDP. So this free health idea is massive in this country, as you know. Be interesting to see how not only he deals with the pandemic. And B, getting to grips with the National Health Service, which is a big, hot political football. That's for months to come. But the pandemic, I feel as though, there may be something about the present Chancellor in this. If it is, it's the fact that he's been dancing around for the past couple of weeks, really, getting direct questions about when are we going to have to pay for all this stuff. And he said, well, there will be an autumn statement. So he's acting like a politician. Would he like to be Prime Minister? Yes, he would. Is Boris Johnson injured? Possibly. I don't know. I'm not a political analyst. I just look at what the markets are doing, and so far, no reaction whatsoever. But I think it's good to have somebody in charge of health and in charge of where the regulations and the rest of it about pandemics concerned, who's not so much listening to the medical advice, which of course you have to do, but looking with another eye on the economy as well. I think that's a good thing.
Michael, quickly, two quick things. The first has to do with the Federal Conduct Authority, the Financial Conduct Authority of the UK, banning Binance from selling cryptocurrency assets in the UK. And the Binance Group saying, well, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Having, interestingly, had the same experience in the US, in Canada, and also most recently in Japan, I would like you to just explain to us why the Financial Conduct Authority is also very skeptical about the sale of cryptocurrency assets, crypto assets in the United Kingdom without regulation. And very quickly, China. Yesterday, there was a press conference in Beijing announcing the celebration of the centennial anniversary of the China Communist Party, the CCP. Now, Xi Jinping is president, but there are contradictions in terms of where China is at the moment. All the things that the CCP has been able to do in the last 100 years, would they be able to sustain it, particularly with regard to competition, economic growth, and in the face of objections from the West?
I think, first of all, let's talk about China. I mentioned that in the intro, 100-year Communist Party, the big authoritarian, lasting authoritarian in history. That's what they're saying now. It kind of fits in with the Roman Empire. But anyway, let's not worry about that too much. Yeah, 100 years ago, what's it actually achieved? It's achieved a mystery, really. Are growing massively, but as China is concerned, it does need to with whatever it makes about however much it pretends it's going to be the biggest in the world be, but war, it doesn't. It's suffering from which it suffers headwinds that are blowing, and production headwinds that are blowing, and COVID headwinds that are blowing into every economy around the world. So cooperation, I think, rather than standing apart. Not sure of the Communist Party is something you want to celebrate to millions of Russians during the war and afterwards. I don't think so, but then again, that may be your cup of tea. It's not mine. All about central government control. What the FCA is actually saying is there will be no regulated, there will be no room for bitcoins in regulated financial transactions at the moment. What we're seeing is, aren't we, lots of customers going to their banks, lots of very rich customers, and saying, "Excuse me, what's this about? What's this about Bitcoin? Am I exposed in a good way to currency? How are you dealing with its volatility? All these kind of questions of the world." So the other authorities may take the lead. Certainly, the authorities in the United States are certainly doing that. Around the world, yes, I suppose they will. I would too. I think what we're going to see, though, is more gov coins coming out, which is a whole different story, isn't it, as we know?
What do you make of this report by a UK-based firm, International Institute for Strategic Studies, on the cyber capabilities of several countries that says that the United States is a decade ahead of China, which they described as second tier, along with Russia, which for me was quite surprising because so much is made of their hacking capabilities, and Iran is in the third tier with North Korea and Vietnam, according to them.
I don't know. That who would know? I would expect that authority to say those. As far as other countries are concerned, I mean, you never know, do you? Who on earth knows what's going on? How do we know what crypto capability? There are in different places. I mean, by some nature, it's difficult to know.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Now our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rotus.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. We kick off with oil prices. Michael Wilson already touched on the trajectory of oil prices. Take a look at this chart from the left side of the green bar from the left side of your screen going all the way to the right. That's the 1 year movement in oil prices so far. And you're seeing it touched about $76 a barrel earlier in early morning trading. Might have fallen a bit, but that's where we are right now with oil prices. So as a result of that, what is the impact on Nigeria in terms of the landing cost? The NNPC has said that for the month of June, they will be deducting from the FAC allocation for the Federation account 114 billion naira in order to attend to the cost of under recovery, the difference between pump price and what it costs to bring refined fuel, PMS, into the country. Between February and May, that cost has almost quadrupled. It was 25 billion that they took out for February for under recovery from the Federation allocation account. It was 60 billion in March. It was 61 billion in April. It was 125 billion naira in May. So that's a 4x jump in that cost. NNPC is saying, look, I mean, look, it's we say this today. This is almost a daily thing now, right? Doesn't look like the federal government is listening, but these costs are increasing. In fact, other reports suggest that the landing cost of fuel is now up 60% between December and the 16th of June. Don't forget, the PPRA put out a template in February. They took it down quickly because of the uproar it caused. Remember, it caused a lot of fuel lines. It's still something that needs to be addressed. It's the elephant in the room. What is the current landing cost of fuel right now? It's definitely gone up when you look at where fuel prices are. So the NNPC is saying, hey, this deduction is going to continue. This day newspaper actually got a hold of a presentation that the NNPC made to the Federal Ministry of Budget and Planning about what was going to this rise in under recovery was going to cost them. So the costs keep going up as oil keeps going up, and, you know, it is what it is. Is there any urgency with the deliberations with Labour? Don't have any updates yet, but something at some point has to be done. On the same matter, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timi Priscilla, said at a forum organized by the News Agency of Nigeria that the federal government is now using tracking devices on tankers that are leaving their depots and going to fuel stations. They're using tech now to track tankers to make sure that there's no smuggling. Again, this was all precipitated by your interview with the president, your exclusive interview at After Rock, where you asked the president about subsidies, and then he went to fuel smuggling and said that we have to secure the borders. Since that interview, he called a come to Jesus meeting, if you will, and organized it between the EFCC, DSS, Customs, NNPC, and said they need to come together and do something about fuel smuggling, which has been going on for how many months? And it's, you know, just now after your interview that they now decided that they'll have a serious meeting about it. And now Timi Priscilla comes out, right? And now Timi Priscilla comes out and says that they're using technology. Rufai, stop making me laugh. They're using technology and these devices to track these tankers, you know. And then finally on meters, the Central Bank of Nigeria, this is electrification now. The Central Bank of Nigeria says they have funded to the tune of 60 billion naira the scale of distribution of 1 million meters, which is supposed to close the metering gap. About 500,000 of them have been distributed to the discos. About 280,000, a little over 280,000 have been installed. The metering gap is about 6 million. It's phase one of the meter asset program. And so that is still an issue that needs to be addressed. Central Bank is doing what it can. The World Bank is in this as well. So, you know, again, power, fuel, big issues facing Africa's largest economy.
Okay. Tracking devices on the tankers. I'm sure they track them into Ivory Coast and Abidjan and Benin Republic and Niger when the tankers get into those countries. I mean, why don't they track them at the borders in the first place? I mean, what we see when these tankers are smuggled and they get out of the country. I mean, let's stop this. Let's stop this pantomime we do.
Tankers are really big. They're huge.
Yeah, I mean they're so small.
A tanker going across the border.
Roaches, can't you see that we don't see them when they go through the borders and they just go? I mean, let's stop this pantomime.
Right.
I mean, give me a break.
Anyway, very quickly on the tracking device, I suspect that the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timi Presiva, was just saying that as a way of building confidence among Nigerians. The owners are different. It's not the federal government of Nigeria that owns those trucks. Those trucks are owned by other people. So is there any kind of synergy, collaboration, cooperation between the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and those independent marketers of petroleum resources? And if there is the Minister of State telling us that they will willingly allow the Nigerian government to track their trucks? If there is a template to that effect, we need to be told. And what kind of mechanism did they just come up with? Maybe in 48 hours, 72 hours, to ensure that even those tracking devices will not tampered with. However, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources tells us that there is collaboration between the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the Nigerian Customs Service. The same Nigerian Customs Service that cannot even locate smuggled rice, that cannot even locate smuggled arms and ammunition. Is that the same Nigerian Customs Service that will be able to monitor the functioning of tracking the devices? Many of these trucks are not even well maintained in the first place. At what point did they come up with this idea about tracking devices? They've been talking about fuel smuggling. I don't think that the average Nigerian is convinced that the key problem is smuggling of petroleum resources. The average Nigerian may be more convinced that the problem is about inefficiency of the NNPC and the failure of the Nigerian government over the years, not the Buhari government, but over the years, one administration to the other, to address the challenge of the diversification of the economy, to address the challenge of securing our borders, to address the challenge of ensuring that there is transparency and that there is the disappearance of opaqueness. That those two sentences mean more or less the same thing. In terms of the operation of the NNPC. Now you've talked about petroleum subsidy biting adder. Now, can we just say to the authorities that enough of this scaremongering? Because there has been a consistent scaremongering going on for more than 2-3 months. We've been given figures about how, the more the pump price, the spot price of petroleum increases in the international market, the more Nigeria will lose revenue. We have been told that smuggling is a challenge. We've been told that Nigerians are not paying enough appropriate price for petroleum because of the under-recovery recorded by NNPC. On top of that, you now have a crisis in the Niger Delta, where a number of groups, the Niger Delta Avengers, the Reformed Niger Delta Avengers, the Ijaw Youth Congress, PANDEF, the Niger Delta Liberators, all of them are saying, look, they will shut down even that source of revenue, and that Nigeria will be pushed into permanent recession. And on top of all of that, the average Nigerian is being told you will end up paying 256 naira per liter. It may even be higher. And that may be a prescription for chaos, for anarchy, for a slide beyond the precipice. Now, you mentioned Labour. What is Labour saying? The negotiation between Labour and the federal government of Nigeria has been going on forever. We've been having this scaremongering from the federal authorities. Labour has been playing deaf and dumb. Can they also come forward and offer us alternative ideas? Can they come forward and tell us the status of the negotiations Because you and I will wake up one morning and we will start trekking and riding bicycle in this country because we will not be able to pay for fuel.
Boris, do you have a rejoinder to all of that? I just want to know, where is the report on the border closure? That's all I want to know. I just want to see that. A 16-month border closure, what were the gains? Otherwise, what was the point? What we heard about tracking?
Tundu, off your mic. Off your mic, Tundu. Off your mic.
We gained double-digit inflation. That's what we gained.
Tundu, off your mic, please. Off your mic. Rotus, I mean, it's a circus show. It's a big circus show. Big circus show. And the painful thing is lives are at stake. Lives are being lost every day. And we still think it's a joke. It's a circus. You know, it's like Lafayette, isn't it? It's a pantomime. That's what we think it is.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much, Rotus. Really appreciate you. Adeswa, good morning. How are you doing? COVID-19
Very well,
update.
thank you, Rufai. I cannot imagine Dr. Abachi on a bicycle. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, at the rate Nigeria is going, I may have to start coming to the office with a bicycle.
We hope it doesn't get there.
The rally.
Let's look at the coronavirus latest update. Globally, the virus has infected at least 181 million people, and unfortunately, at least 3.9 million others have died. As at the 27th of June, 2.8 billion doses have been administered. This is according to the Johns Hopkins University tally. Now, the World Health Organization this weekend registered the lowest number of cases worldwide since February, but it is cautioning that the Delta variant, now present in at least 92 countries, is driving a deadly new wave in countries from Indonesia to Russia. Even countries with highly successful vaccination drives have now run into difficulty. Example is Israel. Israel has reimposed a requirement to wear masks in enclosed public places just 10 days after dropping the mask policy. In regions where vaccination has so far been minimal, such as Africa, the Delta strain progress is alarming. Cases have jumped to 25% over the last week across the continent. Here in Nigeria, the country remains spared from all of this. According to the official data released in Nigeria, 2 cases were reported in the last 24 hours from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And the NCDC says no data came in from Lagos State. So 2 new cases, no death had been recorded in the last 24 hours. Let's take a look at the vaccination against COVID-19 here in Nigeria. Over 2.2 million Nigerians have received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, while 1.15 million of those figures have also received a second dose of the vaccine. So for the second dose, we have about half of this number, and the second slide will show you that. Half of these numbers have now taken their second dose. Quickly, away from Nigeria, South Africa has had to reintroduce tough restrictions, including a ban on alcohol sales, an extended night curfew, and schools are closed for the next 14 days as it fights this fast increasing surge of COVID cases. President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation last night. He says the Delta variant discovered in India appears to be driving the country's new increase. South Africa recorded 15,000 new cases, more than 15,000 new cases yesterday, including 122 deaths. That brings the total fatality in the country to nearly 60,000. And the country's most populous province of Gauteng has the brunt of the current surge, accounting for 66% of the new infections. Now, that province includes the largest city of Johannesburg and the capital, Pretoria. To the UK, after a dramatic weekend, I must say, work begins for new Health Secretary Sajid Javid. He will update members of Parliament later today about plans for lifting remaining lockdown restrictions in England. Remember that July 19 date is penciled, but will it be extended? We shall find out later today. He says his priority is to return the country to normal as soon as possible, and he praised his predecessor. He found time to praise his predecessor, Matt Hancock, who was forced to resign after breaking his own social distancing rules. Finally, this morning, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has added a warning about risk of heart inflammation to fact sheets for Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines. These two are the only mRNA vaccines we have at the moment. The warning notes that reports of adverse events following vaccination, particularly after the second dose, suggest increased risk of myocarditis, that's an inflammation of the heart muscle, and pericarditis, that's an inflammation of the tissue surrounding the heart. So far, more than 1,200 cases of the inflammation have been reported. Many of those are in young men after their second dose. The acting CDC director says the benefits of these vaccines still clearly outweighs the risk. Parents should not be alarmed, but they should monitor their children after they take these vaccines. There has been no comments from Pfizer and Moderna yet.
Wow, it's all so alarming. I wouldn't say, anyway, let me not get into that, because the idea of children having side effects is horrific. I want to talk about Sajid Javid.
Yes.
We're now about to find out, aren't we, exactly, the extent of the powers of the health secretary. To what extent was all those very sort of draconian lockdown rules, including not hugging people, which even Matt Hancock could not abide by. He fell foul of his own rules. To what extent is it the making of the health secretary, and to what extent is SAGE, the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, headed by Patrick Valens, and then there's also Chris Whitty and that team, who really pulls the strings here? Because Matt Hancock was extremely unpopular as health secretary. He was blamed for the deaths in the nursing home, blamed for the decline in a lot of industries because of the severe lockdown rules, ruined people's weddings and funerals and what have you. But now we have a new person in charge. Do you think the tide is going to turn at this one?
Tunul, I mean, like opposition leader said, the resignation of Matt Hancock is definitely not the end of this case. At that time, when this happened, the lockdown restriction in place was that you could not mix with somebody from another household, and you had to be 2 meters apart. So with that grabbing, it was definitely breaking those rules. And they were simple and clear, Tunul. If you're not from the same household, you are not supposed to be gathering together. You are supposed to be 2 meters apart. These measures are put in place for everyone to abide. No one is clearly above these restrictions, but we'll see where this goes, Tundu.
Well, Matt Hancock's offense is certainly not the affair that he had with a former University of Oxford classmate that he got into his office as a top advisor, at taxpayers' expense. And then he turned his office into a space for coquetry, and for betrayal. But the people are concerned that a Secretary of Health who was making rules for other people had a duty to respect his own rules. And he didn't want to resign, but public objection was so strong, he had to resign because he could not turn himself into a bad example of leadership. That was unacceptable. At the end of the day, Dominic Cummings, who seemed to have been vindicated with those WhatsApp disclosures, yes. In which he said even Boris Johnson himself concluded at some point that Matt Hancock was hopeless. Yes. And he had also lost the confidence of the people of the United Kingdom. And I hope that this will be a lesson for other leaders saddled with such a responsibility to realize that when you lead by example. Yeah. He failed to lead by example. He became a hypocrite because he even just wanted to defend himself and stay in office. Sake Steiner is right in saying that, yes, he may have resigned, but he should have been fired by Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister. That is that about that. In the United States, the issue that you raised about the FDA warning about heart inflammation, yes. They talked about two conditions, myocarditis and pericarditis. Yes. One is the inflammation of muscles of the heart. The other, pericarditis, is about the inflammation of the tissues around the heart. Observed mainly in persons under 30. Observed also majorly in males. But the argument that the benefits outweigh the risks is all about the fact that, well, out of about over 1 million people, 30 million, only cases of about 1.2 thousand had been noted. And that in any case, out of about 300 million, if you look at it, it's just about 12.3 per day, with both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines combined. Yes. So in other words, they say it's rare. But it's something that, again, could encourage vaccine hesitancy. Despite the fact that in the United States, at least 56% of the adult population have taken the first dose. But the bigger concern now in the United States is about the Delta variant,
Yes.
which has become more transmissible and which is flying at an alarming rate. And both the Center for Disease Control and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, although they've not made a definitive statement on this, they've observed that people who have taken the Johnson & Johnson vaccine are now taking a second dose, of either the Pfizer or the Moderna, just to be on the safe side. But, even in Europe, that possibility is being considered because the Delta variant has become a major threat given the transmissibility rate. In South Africa, where it's not just about South Africa, across Africa, according to the WHO regional director, 14 countries in Africa are already experiencing the third wave. South Africa has close to 2 million infection cases, over 590,000 cases of death. So the president came out and he has rolled out all of these measures to shut down activities within the country, more or less. No pubs, curfew, 9 p.m. to 4 a.m., and all of that restriction. And 5 states are most affected. The Free State, Gauteng, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes.
Well, what lessons can we learn from South Africa? As we have seen that, in Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, even in Ghana, the Delta variant is abroad. But here in Nigeria, people are milicking and jollofing every weekend with reckless abandon. Is Nigeria so immune from this COVID-19? I hope we will not wake up one day with the sad reality that we do not have any kind of divine immunity against COVID-19 in Nigeria.
I mean, I think it's obvious we don't have any divine immunity against COVID-19. If we remember what happened in December, we saw it coming. That second wave had started around November, and we saw it trickle down to Nigeria. And it was heightened when a lot of returnees came back to the country and people were moving around and interacting. So we have no immunity. And this is something we should look at critically. And this is the point where probably we could bring back the mask mandate, because I see that it looks as though the mask mandate is over. I don't know, because when you go everywhere, people don't wear masks. They don't even enforce it any longer. You go into restaurants now and people allow you going without a face mask. You go into supermarkets, people allow you going without a face mask. So the mask mandate is no longer there. I think that's for starters, we should bring it up. And secondly, ramp up our vaccination. We hear some vaccines are coming in July. That should do some work. We hear supplementary budget has been passed as regards buying vaccines. That should do more work. But also thirdly, the people that have developed vaccine candidates, this is the time to help them. We had Dr. Ebere Kirike here come talk about the MasterCard fund. This is the time to access funds like that, to be able to build the infrastructure to create our own vaccines.
Yes.
I mean, the Sobrano vaccine out of Cuba has finally passed, third phase trial. 62% effectiveness rate.
92, actually.
92. Thank you for that.
Two of the vaccines are having 92.
92.
Yes.
So Cuba has got 2 vaccines. Cuba. I mean, Cuba with a high level of poverty has got 2 vaccines. And Nigeria, 200 million people, the giant of Africa has got none. Zilch. That just shows that a lot has to be done. So can we support those vaccines candidates? Can we raise money? Can we give ourselves a target that maybe before the end of the year we can have a vaccine candidate, that has finally passed stage 2 or stage 3? That's the way to go. And thirdly, for me, will be about Matt Hancock. I mean, we've all learned what leadership is all about.
Yes.
And the shocking thing on this was there were a lot of Matt Hancocks in Nigeria. We saw a lot of we had the governor here on this show that told us when we asked him about COVID-19 protocols and his electoral campaigns, he said, the people love me, and I can't just leave the people alone like that. So when they come around me, I go close to them. And this was at the height of COVID-19. And this was the shocking thing. This governor had COVID-19 himself. Anyway, Matt Hancock too had COVID-19 himself. So the big question we should be asking ourselves is, if Matt Hancock was in Nigeria, will he leave office? No! And that's the bigger problem in the fight against COVID-19 in Nigeria. Matt Hancock could resign because he was held accountable in a society that works. If Matt Hancock was in Nigeria, would he resign?
No, but Boris Johnson went around shaking hands in hospitals and said as much. I went to the hospital and was shaking hands with everybody, and he got COVID. He wasn't forced to resign. When Dominic Cummings broke the lockdown rules and went to Durham, I believe it was.
Yes.
He wasn't forced to resign. Matt Hancock, I think, just chose to do it. I think the heat was too much for him after the Dominic Cummings issue and then this affair. And then the nature of it wasn't just about breaking lockdown rules, was it, and about social distancing rules. No, it was salacious. It was embarrassing. If not, he would have sat tight as well. I'm sorry, he would have. You read Boris Johnson's statement, even envisaging already a return for Matt Hancock into public life. So it's quite clear he could have sat tight.
So
Well,
that's
okay. African countries face a major challenge. As Dr. Muchisedo Moeti, the regional representative of the WHO, was pointing out again over the weekend, when she was talking about the 12 most affected countries in Africa, out of the 14 that have issues. There is issue in terms of capacity. There are issues in terms of vaccine shortage. There are issues in terms of logistics. There are issues
spreading.
There are issues in terms of the Delta variant showing up, specifically in 12 countries of Africa.
Yes.
And then there is the big issue of mistrust. So there's a whole cocktail of issues that African countries have to deal with. Between May 30, when the third wave began in Africa, there's been a 28% increase within a space of about 48 days, 5 weeks, Dr. Moeti says. So we face a very serious problem, and Nigeria must read the tea leaves carefully in terms of what we're getting from other parts of the continent. It's not enough to just say we have to ramp up vaccination. Africa has done only 1% of full vaccination out of its entire 1.3, 1.5 billion population. Out of the vaccines available in the entire world, only about 1.5% has been administered in Africa. So African leaders really need to wake up. This belief that something will happen and COVID-19 does not affect the black man is not the issue. And right there in Ghana, as I pointed out earlier, the Delta variant has been identified in the northern part of the country. But we'll see how it goes, but we just hope that people must also take necessary precautions. Even in the United States and elsewhere, the WHO has said, even when you are fully vaccinated, you must still use the mask because of the ferocious spread of the Delta variant and the realization that it's not every available vaccine that can address that particular variant. Even in South Africa, Springboks, they are a Super Rugby team, world champions since 2019. They had to cancel their training sessions yesterday because 3 of the players tested positive. So in Africa, we're facing a new round whereby the COVID-19 pandemic is sabotaging everybody. But here in Nigeria, where, as I said, I go on Instagram, I see how people are jollofing and malicking and dancing, and musicians are singing and all of that, and people are embracing themselves. I try to avoid many of these functions because, as they say in Nigeria, eba is very sweet. And I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss my taste of.
Just a quick reminder to everyone that the vaccines we have break the link with hospitalizations and death, but they did not really stop infections. So we have breakthrough infections. Even if you have been fully vaccinated, you are most likely to still get infections. So you have to keep all the non-pharmaceutical protocols in place. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and keep safe social distancing as much as you can.
You cannot be more correct at this one.
Probably that's why we have to have that math mandate back, and we must enforce it thoroughly.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you so much.